Hey everybody, I'm Tony Jones, and welcome to the Tony Jones Show.
It's not enough. People are willing to take the risk. It's just sort of a herd mentality, a lemming-like mentality. If you don't go with the flow, you're anti-American and therefore a suspect.
The Tony Jones Show, featuring punk, rockabilly, psychobilly, and Providence, Rhode Island's finest, starts right now.
He's a dangerous militia member, I hear. Oh, and there she blows.
Friends, the time for mediocrity in broadcasting is over. My name is Tony Jones, and you were tuned in to the Tony Jones Show, your destination for talk and rock. Online at tonyjones.org, facebook.com/Tony Jones Show. We're on the almighty Twitter at Tony Jones in RI. Thank you for tuning in and hanging out with us. A big thank you to the McGunks for joining us last week on the program, and I hear they had a rip-roaring good time at their show and CD release last night. Of course, remember that you heard it here first on the Tony Jones Show. Kicking things off with some DownCity Armory Double Wiretap, the name of that one. Now, the best thing about having your own show, and especially your own show in an independent media realm, is that you just get to talk about stuff that you like, and you get to bring in people that you think are cool and that you see around. And that is the case with my guest. Well, of course, DJ Psycho Eddie is here. Eddie, good evening.
Good evening.
And making his return, yes, a Tony Jones Show repeat offender, Travis Landry is here. He is the toy director for Bruneau and Company Auctioneers and Rhode Island Comic-Con. Travis, welcome back.
Thank you, Tony. Great to be back as well, Eddie. Good to see you again.
A lot of stuff, has happened since the last time you've been here, and a lot of stuff in your career. A lot of people remember you from the Travel Channel, from Toy Hunter, and it seems that for a young guy, you've been kind of around this area. And for anybody that listens to the show knows that I am a lifelong collector. I collect things that probably are just going to have no value whatsoever, but I collect them nonetheless. But how did you get into this whole, this whole world of toys and comics and collectibles?
So basically, from a young age, I mean, my parents, that's how it all started. They were big antiques collectors, but I did not care about the old dark wood and pottery and porcelain, all that weird stuff. I like my toys and comics.
Right.
So I started collecting Transformers. That was my big thing. And even though I was born in 95, my first Transformer I ever played with was a Generation 1 Jetfire. So you can see how I got that bug in me, because that's an awesome toy. And since then, started collecting, bought and sold my first collection at 13.
Wow.
And I was a senior in high school when I got cast to go on Toy Hunter, which was a blast. And being with Toy Hunter, that got me hooked up with Comic-Con, where I met Steve. And that's where we started putting together the toy auctions. And then I started working for Bruneau and Co. Auctioneers. And then we started going together, and now I work for Bruneau & Co. full-time. I do their antiques and their fine arts, but in partnership with them, I do the toy and comic auctions.
So, and we were just talking about this off the air, those first few Comic-Cons that happened, I mean, they were great events, but they were nothing compared to what's happening now with 80,000, 100,000 people coming through the
it's totally different. I mean, Rhode Island Comic-Con in its first year, you had half of the large room in the convention center. Now you're at the Dunk. You got tents going up in the back, and you really have a San Diego or New York level lineup in terms of guests.
I mean, we talk to people. If you don't know, DJ Psycho Eddie here is an Uber driver, and there is nobody that has the pulse on the population but an Uber driver. And with the media side and with just going to the parties afterwards, we really are bumping into people from all over the globe that have come here to little old Rhode Island. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's great to say. Like, can you believe Rhode Island has a top-tier convention?
Yeah.
It's the third largest in the country now.
How did you decide to kind of, especially coming up as a son of dealers and being into this at such a young age, how did you decide to really kind of dial things into, American toys, Japanese toys, and stuff post-1950? Because it's just a huge realm of different stuff that you could be into.
Excuse the term, I hope it's allowed, but they're just kind of badass. Cool robots, die-cast, heavy metal, guns, missiles that can poke your eye out.
Toys that could literally kill you.
Yeah,
I mean, do you remember lawn darts?
I mean, honestly, it's crazy to think, like when Generation 1 Optimus Prime, the first one that came out, kids were choking left and right on a smokestack, so they had to make bigger smokestacks. That's not funny, but it's kind of a unique, interesting part of toy history there, where it's just that's what I got caught up into, and there's so much stuff that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the toys that were released in Japan, people know Shogun Warriors or Godaikins, which were, Godaikins were die-cast robots, the Shogun Warriors, the big 24-inch made out of shampoo bottle plastic. Well, we only got 5 in the United States, and there were over 100 released in Japan. So that's a whole other world where we only got 1%. So, for someone with a little curiosity, it's a long way to keep digging.
So I made mention earlier of things that I collect that can in no way, shape, or form ever have value, yet I have a room full of them.
What do you collect?
Wrestling toys, a lot of punk rock stuff, a lot of tiki stuff, and if there isn't anything more obscure, stuff from Rocky Point Amusement Park. And when you talk about toys being dangerous, I remember taking one of those big old WWF at the time, action figures and chucking it at one of my friends, and I mean, it just almost knocked every tooth in his mouth out because it was huge. I mean, it was it was a sculpture.
And if it was Danny, that's really not much of a stretch.
Just knocked his teeth back in.
And if I remember correctly, they were just like a solid brick of rubber.
Yeah,
those and those today are actually, for certain ones, are valuable. but they have to be in the box.
Yeah.
That's always the key. Condition is everything when it comes to toys.
So I want to talk a little bit more about, that's a great point, about if someone kind of comes over one of these stashes, you know, unfortunately grandma, auntie passed away, and they have this, what they think might be a lot. I want to talk about what the next steps would be, but we'll do that after the music, because I think there's a lot of people listening like me that are concerned that they may have been collecting junk their whole lives, and I'm okay with that. You know, I'm in a good place with that, but I would just assume that you come across hidden gems all the time. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes, but before that, we're going to have a double shot of SexCoffee right here on the Tony Jones Show, starting off with Damascus.
A stranger's hand cuts through the air to say hello. Felt so good to get away. Think you should know. Felt so good. Felt so good, I think I'll stay. Through a bit of tongue to hide the strings that come undone. Past was never-ending lane, finding flaws within. Piece of power mind creates a systematic overflow. Inside myself to feel much stronger than I. It didn't make much sense. Couldn't help myself. Didn't make much sense. Can we drive until the sun goes down and back around and never look back? Expect nothing less than catastrophe. Walk eyes closed from this illusion. 1 more mile from a solution. When the sun beats down, paint a picture that's out of bounds. Try to alleviate, but every mile I read. It didn't make much sense. Couldn't help myself. Didn't make much sense. Can we dive until the sun goes down and back around and never look back? Much sense. Couldn't help myself. You should know. Felt so good. Felt so good. I think I'll stay. Didn't make much sense. Couldn't help myself. Didn't make much sense. Can we drive until the sun goes down and back around? from me, honey. Don't wanna talk about it. You fucking hypocrite. I'll let you think about it. You're only lying to yourself, yeah. Tell me things I'm gonna change, 'cause the words are easy to believe, yeah. You're only lying to yourself, yeah. Make up your mind if you wanna stay, 'cause this body's very close to leaving. You know I've got some things you can't replace. Your body yearns for thoughts you can't erase. So I don't wanna hear your lies. Put away your alibis. I don't need to question why you're here with me if this is where I wanna be. You're only lying to yourself, yeah. Tell me things I'm gonna change, 'cause the words are easy to believe, yeah. You're only lying to yourself, yeah. Make up your mind if you wanna stay, 'cause this body's very close to leaving.
Coming out of Two from Sex Coffee right here on the Tony Jones Show. Lying to Yourself, the name of that one. Before that, Damascus. Thank you for tuning in and hanging out with me as we spin the best local music around. Don't forget, I do monitor the social media accounts throughout the broadcast. Facebook.com/Tony Jones Show. Hit me on Twitter at Tony Jones in RI. And, of course, don't forget to click on the contact page if you'd like to get us your music, you'd like to be in studio, rifreeradio.org or tonyjones.org. DJ Psycho Eddie is here, and we're talking all things comics, collectibles, Comic-Con, which is coming up with Travis Landry. And before the break, we were talking about the idea of, so Travis, say somebody's rooting around in the cellar, they come through the stereotypical old Foot Locker, chock full of toys, or maybe, unfortunately, auntie or grandma passed away. They think they have this stash of antiques. What's the next step for somebody in that situation?
Well, the next, I mean, everybody, especially in today's world with everything that's on TV and what people can just think they can easily Google on the internet, you know, you want to find a specialist, someone who knows, and I'm not just saying for myself, but somebody out there who's reputable who can tell you exactly what you have. Because you don't want to give something away for less, or you don't want to give something away for anything or for free if you don't even know what it is. And a lot of times it's like through the auction house when we go on house calls, people will say, "Oh, don't worry, we already cleaned out everything in a dumpster. We left you all the good stuff." And a true story is my boss has pulled mid-century modern Knoll furniture out of a dumpster when the family preserved all maple furniture that was maybe worth $10 and $15. So you really want to make sure you're confident and know what you're doing and find someone where they're not going to buy it from you, but they'll maybe work with you and help you sell it.
Right. And you must be in an industry where, because of the internet, which is, you know, something we love and loathe all at the same time, everybody thinks they have their PhD and are experts, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially, you know, if you go on Craigslist and you see the 32 ads, buying comics, buying toys, offer. I mean, those are a lot of people out there where I'm sure they're not going to tell you, oh, there's that one key issue in the box that's
they're going to buy the whole lot for $5 and smile on the ride home.
Exactly. That's not what you want to happen to you, because we've heard some horror stories.
So that kind of dovetails perfectly into the event you have coming up through Bruneau and Company Auctioneers and through Rhode Island Comic-Con on October 28th, which is a live auction at the auction house. So talk a little bit about the difference of the live auction, you know, versus just doing these things online. And then if someone's never been to a live auction, you know, they may be overwhelmed by that idea, or they're afraid they're going to accidentally bid on something. Talk a little bit about what to expect through at a live auction.
Well, the beauty of our auction is that it's actually both.
Right.
It's live and it's online, but it's live online in that people all around the world are sitting at home, they could be sitting on a beach, they could be doing whatever they please, and they could be participating in the auction simply from their phone. And for people that want to come to a live auction, you walk in, you register, you're going to go see Dot or Mary at the front desk, and they're going to say, "Hi, what can I help you with?" And you just ask for a number, and it's really that simple. If you want to bid, you raise your card up. Do I recommend standing up in the middle of the crowd waving to a bunch of people? I don't know. That might be a little distracting, but I can decipher from if it's going to be a bid or not. So it's a warm, welcoming environment, and it's fun. You know, it creates a little bit of anxiety. Oh, I really want that, but there's only one person who can end up with it at the end of the day.
And Bruneau Company actually, you were talking about online and, you know, folks bidding remotely. Bruneau Company actually has a cell phone app, correct?
Yep, you could download our app, Apple Store, App Store for Google. We're on all the major, platforms you can call it for that. And then in terms of where you can bid, we're on eBay, Live Auctioneers, Invaluable, Auction Zip, and then we're on websites that I can't even pronounce the name in Asia and in Europe.
And do you have people bidding and buying these items from all over the globe?
Oh, yeah. We've shipped a 1949 Bentley to Australia. We shipped a Patek Philippe wristwatch to Thailand. There are some really unusual purchases that come from all areas, but it's not, China, that's one of our biggest places we send things. The customers are everywhere. It's a global market.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between dealing with, just one person in one area versus a company that sells to the world.
So when you get inventory in, is that mostly local inventory and then kind of you're dispersing that out to the world from there?
It's local inventory. I mean, people have contacted us from halfway across the country to handle collections. We just shipped up a collection of 3,500 comics from Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
So we deal with everybody because, there aren't too many people that will do what we do with comic books and sort it out and get the final dollar out of it.
That's awesome. We're going to head back to the music now. We're talking with Travis Landry, and, of course, you know that I love this whole space, but we're going to talk about what Travis has coming up, and, again, we'll talk a little bit about Rhode Island Comic-Con because it's just a stellar lineup this year. But before that, we'll get back to the music. Up next, some Ravi Shavi. This track is Indecisions right here on The Tony Jones Show.
You're out of my league. But I'm in my element. Oh, come home with me. Just for the hell of it. Got the eyes that keep on loving. You got the eyes that say come back home. Indecision. That's what I'm missing. Indecision. Indecision, get her out of my head. Into my heart. Indecision. Get into my heart. Ow! Give you some more loving. You're out of my league, but I'm in my element. Oh, come home with me, just for the hell of it. You got the eyes that keep on loving. So alive to come back home. Indecision. Indecision. Indecision, get her out of my head. Into my heart. Indecision. Into my heart. Ow! I've got to give you love. My heart. everybody's always down. Tell me why? Because I can't get up. Come on and get up. Come on and get up. A dose it out of Levi. I'm planning a big surprise. I'm gonna fight for what I wanna be. And I won't make the same mistakes. Yes, I know how much time that wastes. Revulsion is the key. In the waiting room, I don't want the news. I got news for it. I don't want the news. I want a part of it. Sitting outside of town, everybody's always down. Because they can't get up. Come on and get up. Up from the waiting room. Sitting outside of town, everybody's always down. Sitting in the waiting room. 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 Tell me why? Because they can't get up.
Coming out of two live ones from Juicehead right here on the Tony Jones Show. Lorraine, the name of that one. Before that, Waiting Room. And then before that, I brought you into some Ravi Shavi Indecisions, local band doing some big things currently in Brussels. And they're going to be in Brussels doing a residency until December 30th. Now, I just barely made it here from Wickford. And my boys Ravi Shavi are in Brussels, so a big shout out to those guys and much continued success to that great local band. You are tuned in to the Tony Jones Show, TonyJones.org, RIFreeRadio.org. Go to Facebook.com/Tony Jones Show, on the almighty Twitter at Tony Jones in RI. Some folks checking in with me there. Thank you. DJ Psycho Eddie is here. Travis Landry is here. He is the toy comic guru of Bruneau and Company Auctioneers, Rhode Island Comic Con, and you may remember him from the Travel Channel's Toy Hunter, but you have something else in the works, and I know this is, I don't want to sloppily talk about it because you're still working on all the details, but what do you have coming up with Antiques Roadshow?
So, yeah, that's the very exciting news going on right now is I just started filming this past season 22 for Antiques Roadshow, representing both Rhode Island Comic Con and Bruneau & Co. Auctioneers in the collectibles department. My first stop was out in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which was a bunch of fun. Then they invited me back to help out in the last spot, which was Newport. And it's exciting, a little nerve-wracking all at the same time. Yeah. I'm officially now like the youngest person ever to go on the show as an appraiser. So being 21 and being amongst all these guys who are the hard, steady rock professionals who have been in it for 25 years can be a little intense, but talk about a ride.
So talk about the difference between being a younger person in this area, and actually it's something I saw in radio coming up. A lot of times when I worked for a station, I was like the youngest guy around, and folks were aging out, and there was always sometimes a weird dichotomy, but sometimes not. But is there kind of a competition for younger people in this space, along with the old dogs that have been in this space?
No, because what's funny is a lot of the old dogs laughed at me when they first saw what I was doing because it was real. I was like, these 6 Pokemon cards are great, and they're like, that's a sentence. Pokemon cards and great, and I'm like, yeah, this one card. It came across there were 20 Pokemon cards, but the 6 were like first editions.
Wow!
And of the 6, there was a Charizard. That was Gem. It was Gem, like Gem 9 if it were to be graded. So figure that's a $2,000, $2,500 card for someone out there, and to think that's a Pokemon card from the mid '90s. And these guys are still thinking, I got to buy my 1810 grandfather clock, and I got to seek out that, that floral porcelain dish set. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of money out there in a different type of world. So it's just exposing. It's just the change right now in the antiques world of what's becoming valuable and what people are trying to hold on to still be valuable.
There was a lot of that happening regarding Magic the Gathering, right? So a kid would go off to college, or they'd move out of their parents' house. The folks would kind of clean out the room. They'd find these Pokemon cards, these Magic the Gathering cards, and they're just seeing trading cards, and they were throwing them out in the dumpsters, right?
Oh, my God. I mean, how many Black Lotuses were sold through a garage sale?
Or, just take them all for $1.
Yeah, buy my whole binder. You can go to a yard sale. Even today, you could still go to a yard sale and find whole binders of trading cards for $1, $2, $3, because nobody knows.
Yeah.
There are things that aren't in the light as much. You watch all these shows like American Pickers and Pawn Stars, and they show them a little bit, but to think like, oh my God, that 3 3/4 GI Joe or any of these figures that's a $5,000-$6,000 action figure.
But at the same time, people are, and I see it kind of in the area where I live, because there's about 4 or 5 antique shops kind of on a row down there, and as much as there's steady business for what you're doing and what I'm into, those guys are staying busy too, right? The classic side of it.
They are staying busy. I think it's just they're finding it harder and harder to sell. And the problem is they have to keep coming down on the prices.
Yeah.
The days of being able to sell, your regular run-of-the-mill Victoria China cabinet for $500-$600, now they have to sell them for $100, $125. So there's a lot less profit to be made, and not everybody is decorating in dark mahogany and oak
or decorating at all, right?
Decorating. Yeah,
you are decorating in dark mahogany.
Actually, yeah. My you may or may not know this. My house was built in 1946 or 47, and we're revamping the whole house room by room, and we're using period correct furniture.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So I have mahogany. I have bird's eye veneers and a lot of inlays and a lot of great stuff going on.
That's awesome, and that's what that's one of my personal missions. I want to tell people wake up. You're going to these build-it-yourself furniture stores. It's spending $200-$300 for things made out of pressed particle board. When I could say, in my house, I decorate with I focus on 18th century American furniture.
Yep.
So people will come over and be like, "Oh, that's a beautiful desk," and I'm like, "Yeah, that desk is older than our country. How much you pay for it?" "Oh, $500.
Wow.
What? I went to Cardi's and bought a desk for $1,300. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's gonna fall apart in 5 years."
I don't know where I'm going to get my furniture now that Benny's is going out of business. I like those tables you could just screw together and you pop the thing up. I'm going to trash it anyway.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, I just got a full bedroom set. Armoire, a small makeup bench, and a chest of drawers.
Yeah.
Now, because it's from a secondhand shop in West Warwick and not one of these fancy antique shops, I only spent $200.
Yeah,
That included delivery.
That's
The
amazing.
mirrors were there. I mean, these are 50 to 100-year-old pieces.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a few scratches. Yeah, the veneer doesn't look perfect, but it looks good enough for my house. Mm-hmm. I'm not buying this stuff as an investment. I'm doing it to keep my wife happy, really. And for a $200 investment to keep me out of the doghouse is well worth it.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
But you'd be surprised today how much stuff is out there that is really used to be thousands 10, 20 years ago that you can buy today for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. Yep. It's and that's going to, perfectly into our kind of last segment. I want to talk a little bit about, what you kind of see in the future of this industry and, different things coming down the pipeline. But before that, we'll get back to the music as I take a quick look at the clock in radio time. We're starting to run out of it. So we'll hear two from the October Accord. Up next, the unfortunately now defunct October Accord. But, well, we're going to play them anyway. This one is Cheap Shot. You heard it here on The Tony Jones Show.
Overrated. You're every It's nothing more than lies, but that's only an ugly word when you make it seem that way. I'm reading between the lines. I'm searching for the signs hidden in this endless day. Fine, it's nothing more than time. Well, I'm just taking mine before it turns into oh no, oh no, oh fine. It's nothing more than time. Well, I'm just taking mine before it turns into mine before it turns into oh no, oh no, 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 no. Lines were creeping down my face, were showing me my place, taking payment for my stay. Time, it's just another way, it's just another day, and so I dream it all away. Fine, it's nothing more than time. Well, I'm just taking mine before it turns into oh no, oh no.
Time, the name of that one, The Can't Nots, right here on the Tony Jones Show. Before that, two from the October record, The Flood, a demo that they sent me back in the day. And then before that, Cheap Shot of the Year. Three great local female-fronted tracks right here on the Tony Jones Show. As I look at the clock is ticking down, and it's almost time for us to wrap it up for the week. So there are quite a few more things that I want to get to here with DJ Psycho Eddie and with Travis Landry. And I think one of the things that I want to hit on most importantly is that folks can go to BruneauandCo.com, and that's where you get information about the upcoming toy and comic auction, but just that's where you can get everything Bruneau and Co. related to. Just a fantastic website. I'm looking at it now, and you can go through and see the team and the buyer and seller services. If you are someone that came across that stash, there's places in this very mill where you could come across a stash and contact Bruneau and Company. But it's BruneauandCo.com. But Travis, I want to talk about where you see this industry going in the future. And when we're listening to music, we were talking a little bit about what is now called retro gaming, or when DJ Psycho, Eddie, and I were kids, was just gaming.
Yes.
Retro gaming is a huge growing segment, correct?
Retro gaming right now, we just did a video game auction at Retro World Expo in Hartford, Connecticut a couple weeks ago. And the prices they were getting are crazy, and it's just how I preach about toys and comics coming up. I'm subject to the same ignorance. I'm like, oh my God, PlayStation 2 games can be worth money. There was a certain game, I believe it was called Lady of the Rose, that they paid $280 for.
Wow.
And it's like, wow, that's not even a decade old.
There's probably people listening to this program that just threw that game in the trash one day.
Exactly. And, it's tough. Retro gaming right now and video games, that's a field that's developing in terms of value. But with all the reissues and stuff that comes up, I wouldn't say that's a solid investment. Right. Because people, that when they collect the games, they're collecting the games to play them. So if you could have a beautifully reissued and rerefurbish system that plays in HDMI.
And hooks right into your TV.
Yeah, without having to use an analog switch.
You're not blowing into the games.
Yeah, you don't have to blow the cartridges. You don't have to fiddle with the connector to get rid of the black and white scatter. So I don't know if I see that as an investment, but what I would say for people is, and it's tough because you don't have a crystal ball. You can't see the future. But comics is one of the hottest things going, and that's where I see as a market that's expanding for today, because you just think it's a perpetual property. Amazing Fantasy 15 came out in 1962, and there are Spider-Man fans still being created today.
Yeah.
So you think for that 13-year-old, when they're 40 from now, they're going to want that piece of history.
Especially as they get a little bit older and they want to share that with their kids.
Exactly.
And they kind of say, hey, check this out. Now they're buying, and I fell into this as a lifelong music fan. There's stuff that I bought on cassette and CD and vinyl, and then I bought it again on vinyl, or I bought it again because I wore it out. So for true hardcore fans, are you seeing people buying multiple copies of the same thing over years?
In terms of comics, I would say when it comes to the vintage ones, it's just too expensive. So what people do is they want to upgrade. They start with a lower grade, and then they'll sell theirs to buy a better book. But with new comics, people are doing that as an investment. Like, oh, this is the first appearance of so-and-so.
Sure.
But the problem is people are doing with those new comics like what people did with Episode 1 toys for Phantom Menace. Everyone hoarded them, kept them perfectly pristine, and then 20 years later, everyone wants to go, oh, these are worth money now. They're Star Wars. And it's like, no, you and 50 other thousand people stored those. And if that's why original Star Wars toys are valuable because people played with them and destroyed them. Not many survived. So if everyone kept beautiful examples sealed, odds are they're not going to be worth that much money.
I think I mentioned last time you were here that I knew I had hit a new level of nerddom when something came out. I forget what it was actually specifically, and I bought 2 of them, one to open and one to keep in the box.
Yes.
That was a different threshold of nerddom. When
you have to buy 2.
I need one to open, one's going to stay in the box up on the shelf. When do you see different inventories kind of tap for certain stuff? I would assume that a lot of the retro gaming is coming forward because people are just finding it around the house and finding these treasures. When do you see the inventories kind of shift around?
It goes basically. It's not just the items itself, and basically what I call it is it's like being a stockbroker. It's literally watching the market, and you have to see if a character that's popular coming out in a movie. Well, odds are once that movie hits, the associated comic or the associated video game is going to rise in value. It's just like how Tom Clancy has his movies come out. Well, vintage Tom Clancy video games rise in value. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with comics. Deadpool, New Mutants 98. Yeah. The first appearance of Deadpool. You could have bought that book 5 years ago in pristine condition for no more than $15. It was a bin book. It was a new comic, modern book that nobody cared about, who was Deadpool. And then, there's a resurgence of Deadpool. The movie comes out. It hits. Deadpool is now a household name. Everybody wants that piece. So now that $15 comic book is now $1,000 for a perfect one in 9.8.
And do you see the comic industry kind of help push things along? I mean, the insurgence of Free Comic Book Day over the past few years. I mean, I've seen people go to comic shops that would have never even considered going into one because they were lured in for that freebie.
Exactly. I mean, the comic book world is here to stay. I would say it's so big, and with everything else with Comic-Con, with the movies that are related, and it's no longer like the nerd in the closet.
Thank God.
It's no longer. It's the time of the nerd. It's popular now to be a fan of the Avengers. It's popular to like Transformers. It's cool that you like G.I. Joe.
I was always a large enough nerd to be able to defend myself, but there's some more hardcore nerds than me that are really just having a victory lap right now.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really funny. I was a nerd when I was a kid. I was 13 years old playing with Transformers in the basement.
Yeah.
And being able to be a professional nerd is kind of is really fun. It's different. It's a great time to be a fan.
Well, when you think of people with cool job titles, director of toys, I mean that's up there with just great job titles. And unfortunately, we're starting to run out of time. But do you have anything in the in the pipeline you want to mention? Things coming up?
Yeah, it's just Rhode Island Comic-Con. Make sure to come visit me Saturday. I got a panel going on for investing in pop culture. So if you want to know how to trade comics like stocks, come and hang out. Come check out our toy and comic auction coming up on October 28th. You can always follow me on Twitter at Travis_Landry. And I'm always around. And if Tony, it's a pleasure.
If you're at the con, keep a lookout for me. Keep a lookout for DJ Psycho Eddie, who may be a clown, who may be Guy Fieri. You never know what you're going to get.
Actually, no, I'm putting the clown by the wayside unless I get another popular resurgence. That's just the investment in time to get my makeup.
A lot of makeup,
done, and the costumes just don't fit like they used to. I'm not
the
gonna
big
lie.
floppy shoes, right?
Yeah, we'll go with the shoes. That's it. No, I had a tragic wardrobe malfunction not that long ago. And my,
blowout.
The jumpsuit is no more.
Well, that about wraps it up for this week's Tony Jones Show. Be sure to go to TonyJones.org, RIFreeRadio.org, Facebook.com/Tony Jones Show. We're on Twitter at Tony Jones in RI. Don't forget to go to BruneauandCo.com. And I'm going to leave you with a few tracks from BlindSide Thunder, starting off with Dream Girl right here on The Tony Jones Show. Bye, everybody. Bye.